Hey there, folks. This is Lucifer Lakeborn, coming back at you with another video. I'm doing videos in a slightly different format now. I'm currently at my computer. Yes, I have my background all blurred out and whatnot. I don't think anybody really cares to see my fireplace or the stuff there. I'm making this video to start the first part of a project that I'm doing, which is breaking the narrative that the Church of Satan has created around itself, and that Satanism was always an atheistic religion. One of the big things is that Anton LaVey, according to the Church of Satan, was always an atheist, and that he always claimed to be an atheist. I'm going to break this narrative, and I'm going to do it right in front of everybody's eyes. And tonight, this video is the first part of that, and I'm going to be establishing a pattern. I'm going to start establishing a pattern. Now, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to review an official letter from the Church of Satan from Blanche Barton to a former magistra. Well, there's speculation about that. A woman who was said to be a magistra, though she claims that she never was, who, in this letter, Blanche Barton says a few things that are very interesting and should be taken note of. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to review this letter, and I'm going to pull it up really quickly right now so we can take a look at this. Now, first off, I'm going to be changing this here in just a second, and I want people to be able to see this. We see that her name is Tani Jantsang, okay, and there is 3 pages to this letter, and people can see quite clearly right here that it is signed Blanche. And this letter happens on January 23rd, year 30 of Anno Satanas. Now, this is basically January of the 33rd year of Satan, which would be 1998. And I'm not going to bother reading this first page because all of this is just talking about, and I'm going to go ahead and move it to the center right now. All of this is just talking about their son, Xerxes, her and Dr. LaVey. You can freeze frame the picture and you can see what it's talking about. Apparently, Tani Jantsang sent some music, Soviet music, including the Soviet national anthem. They're talking about Xerxes. And this is the page that we're going to pay attention to, because it's on this page that she really makes a very interesting statement. And we're going to be paying attention to that page very much so. And so let's go ahead and take a look at it. So I'm going to start. We're not going to worry about this first paragraph. We're going to read from the second paragraph onward. And I don't know if you can see any of this. I have like slide buttons to slide and everything. But so we're gonna be reading this. All right. So what it says is, and I'm starting right here. I was mildly distressed when I saw you referred to in the letter old Wolf had sent out, implying that you agreed with him that I spoke stupidly when Carla and I gave the announcement of Dr. LaVey's death. He felt it was terribly inappropriate for me to say that Dr. LaVey believed in the devil, and implied that you agreed. So really quickly, what she's talking about here, really quickly, she's talking about an event that happened after Anton LaVey passed away. And what that event was is during the public speaking announcement of Anton LaVey's death, she was asked point blank by the news media, did Anton LaVey believe in a real Satan? At which point Blanche Barton gave an emphatic and very purposeful yes for an answer. This was not contradicted or stopped by Carla, who was on camera with her. Carla made no attempt to dissuade the comment. Carla didn't even, there's no mention at all that Carla ever disagreed with her, even in private. What is mentioned here is another Church Satan member named Old Wolf had some disagreement about this. So, and he wrote a public letter. So let's go ahead and continue onward. All right. He felt it was terribly inappropriate, yada, yada, yada. Okay. That, and implied that you agreed. That you said you'd shown some of my writings to some Christian woman you knew, deleting references to Satanism in the writings, and that they agreed with what I had written. However, he used that to paint me as being unsatanic or fascistic, or writing things that were veiled Christianity or something. Now, that's a pretty interesting thing to write, because that is almost word for word of things that I have been accused of recently, stating that my writings and everything that I've been saying is unsatanic, it's fascist, that I am a reverse Christian, or that I am a closet Christian, whatnot. These are all things that I have recently been accused of by members of the Church Satan, who have been attacking me on Twitter and attacking me on other platforms and stalking me and everything. So that is a very interesting thing to take note of. Let's continue. All right, so where were we? Somehow, all right. Then I reread what he had written about what you presumably said, and realized that he was trying to use you as a quote-unquote convincer to support his disdain for me. I don't know why he has a burr in his butt about me, but apparently from what he wrote to me, he considers me his adversary, quote-unquote. I don't know what your relationship with him is, but he comes across as someone who enjoys pointless debate, considers himself extremely intellectual, and is relatively young and immature, and who likes to pass broad judgment on people he never met. That sounds awfully familiar. It's almost identical tactics to what the Church of Satan has been utilizing with me. They have been judging me. They have been treating me as an adversary. They've been stalking me, which is not mentioned here, but in this situation, there would have been no point in trying to stalk Blanche. I mean, she was the high priestess of the Church of Satan. Simply writing a letter contradicting her at this point would have been tantamount to career suicide. And in all honesty, it wasn't, I believe this was like one of the final times that we ever heard about Old Wolf. the fact is most of the people who have been attacking me have been certainly behaving in a very immature, childish, and young manner. They do indeed seem to enjoy pointless debate. Well, she says debate. With me, it's open confrontation, almost pointlessly. I've had a few that have tried to debate me, and it is, like she states, very pointless in its nature. And they definitely consider themselves extremely intellectual, even criticizing me and saying that I'm illiterate, that I can't write, that I am full of spelling errors and everything else. And honestly, I've looked at a lot of Church Satan material and run it through Microsoft Word and other word processors, and the amount of grammatical and spelling errors that come up is absolutely blindingly ridiculous. Even stuff that is written quite recently tends to have a large amount of spelling errors and grammatical errors that I often find that I have to correct and fix. So yes, that's pretty interesting that we see that trend. Let's continue onward. Really quickly, I'm going to take a drink here. As for saying Dr. LaVey believes in the devil, I think that it's fairly obvious from his philosophy, from his books he's written, the interviews he's given, and the organization he founded, how he defines Satan, and how he uses the concept of the metaphor of the devil is also fairly obvious. But I would be lying if, when asked the direct question, did Mr. LaVey believe in the devil, quote unquote, I were to answer, no, he didn't. We're going to, that came off very Yoda-ish, but that's how she wrote it. So let's go back over this. What she says is that she's mentioning that how Anton LaVey presents himself in all of his writings and all the interviews and everything that he has stated publicly, privately, and everything else, that it's obvious how he approaches the concept of Satan and the devil and whatnot. Certainly using it as a metaphor, a symbolic thing. He's definitely used that terminology publicly. However, he's always been known to reference it as a dark undercurrent of energy in the world. And that's the point that she's clearly making right here. She's stating that everything is very obvious in what he says. And then she states, it's fairly obvious, but, meaning however, I would be lying if, when asked the direct question, did Mr. LaVey believe in a devil, I were to answer, no, he didn't. This is her saying that if she had answered no, he didn't believe in a devil, she felt that she would have been lying to the public media. And it's really interesting because she did say yes, he certainly believed in a real devil. And she was on camera with Carla LaVey. And at no point in time, on or off camera, did Carla ever have any conflict with her over her stating that, yes, Anton believed in the devil. That is never mentioned. It's not in any sort of documentation that I've ever found. If anything, all I've ever found was, the conflict between Carla and Blanche occurred a year later when the will, Anton LaVey's will, came into conflict in the courts, and Carla was challenging it in the courts. That's when the conflict between Carla and Blanche Barton began and occurred. So right here, she's saying that Anton LaVey believed in Satan, and she believes that he believed in a Satan, and that if she had told the public, no, he didn't, she would have been lying to them. That is a very interesting thing. That is a very key telling thing. So let's continue on here. I think I've elaborated on these ideas in my books and in the articles I've written, but apparently Mr. Wolf hasn't bothered to read them, but considers himself qualified to make judgments on whether I am fascistic, satanic, and or stupid based on my appearance rather than my writings. Based on my appearance rather than my writings. This again heralds classic tactics that is even being utilized by modern day Church Satan. And it's not just Church of Satan that I've encountered these tactics on. It's far left individuals who, when they cannot seem to argue against a person, they begin attacking their personal appearance. They begin attacking various elements surrounding that person to try to humiliate that person rather than tackling the subject at hand directly. They begin to try to approach many different elements and surrounding the whole thing. This is very interesting, and I have to say that I'm not surprised, and yet I am surprised at the same time to hear what is going on nowadays of occurred back then in 1997, 1998 to Blanche Barton. It's very interesting to have seen that happening. Continuing onward. All right, to say on whether I'm fascistic, satanic, and or stupid based on my appearance rather than my writing. He apparently objected to my answer such a question with a forthright yes. When I was faced with the national television cameras and speaking to an audience of American dunderheads. And I won't cop out by saying I was grieving. I was. But I was also thinking of people who were grieving the loss of our leader and all around the world who and how it would sound to them if the first thing after he's dead, they hear someone close to him say essentially, oh, he never really believed all that crap. He never really believed in the devil. He was just fooling. This is the party line that is touted by the Church Satan now. It's almost word for word the party line that the Church Satan is using now. That Anton LaVey was being a showman. He was fooling around. He never really believed in an actual Satan. That he made it obvious that he was calling himself an atheist left and right. Even though in none of his writings, none of the articles or anything where he's quoted, none of the interviews, does he ever call himself an atheist. He never uses that terminology. Yet when we look at Peter H. Gilmore, he can't wait to use that terminology. It's very interesting at the dichotomy between the two. And I'll be showing that up in another video later on. So let's get back to this. This is getting really interesting because she is demonstrating and is showing the tactics that are used on me was used on her to try to bully her into compliance, I guess. All right. If I was a Satanist out there, weeping and despondent, I would rather hear a voice clearly saying, "You're damn right he believed in the devil. You assholes. Whether you want to take the watts to understand it or not." So she's telling you right now, she's telling Tani right now that she put herself at this moment in the position of the people that she knew that she would have to be leading, of the people who were following the church Satan and would have been grieving Anton LaVey's passing. She put herself in their position, understanding that they actually did believe in something, and they wanted the nicety of knowing that their leader also believed in something. That is really interesting because as atheists, if they were actually atheists in the Church of Satan, this would have really upset them to hear her say, yeah, he really did believe in something, which is exactly how O acted. But she was thinking of the theistic followers. This is very clearly what she was doing. That if I was a Satanist out there weeping and despondent, I would rather hear a voice clearly saying, quote, "You're damn right he believed in the devil, you assholes, whether you want to take the watts to understand it or not." So right here, she is actually challenging someone. It is really interesting to see that she is, in fact, challenging someone to what? I don't know. To me, I believe it's the atheist. This is starting to lead into another thing that she seems to have some sort of knowledge of, and we're going to get to that by the end of this page. Let's go ahead and continue. But it's really interesting that she is telling Tani that she is talking into the theistics out there and then challenging the atheists out there and stating, it doesn't matter what you think, he actually believed in a Satan. That's really the way he felt about the whole issue. So she's immediately stating that this is how he actually felt about the whole fucking issue. What she just said that she wanted to say out there, now she's confirming, and this is actually Anton LaVey's real feelings from her experience. Mind you, this is a woman who lived with Anton LaVey from the mid-'80s to his death in 1997. So, I mean, she would actually have the full knowledge of what he was and wasn't. He'd written the books, but it wasn't up to him to defend himself or explain away people's fear beyond that. If they didn't get it, quote unquote, that was their problem. As he said, these were his ideas, how he lived his life. And if no one else in the world agreed with him, he'd still be living his life and thinking the same thoughts, whether people understood or not. So right here, she's alluding to something that she's aware of going on surrounding the events of Anton LaVey's death, with the people who surrounded him at this point in time late in his life, that a lot of them must have felt very atheistic. They must have been pushing an atheist agenda. And at this point, it would have been Peter Gilmore stepping in a lot. I've mentioned before, Anton LaVey knew Peter Gilmore mostly through Blanche Barton, and that if it wasn't for her, Peter Gilmore would not have gotten the ranks that he did. So that's very interesting right there, to see Old Wolf attacking Blanche Barton, utilizing the same tactics that are used today, and her challenging them, making it obvious to people that she's thinking of the theistic Satanists and challenging the atheists in the organization. We only got a couple more lines, so let's go ahead and finish that up. And what it says is, he'd still be living his life and thinking the same thoughts, whether people understood it or not. That was powerful, and I don't think it should ever be undermined by trying to rewrite or apologize for it. It was him, and it's an attitude many share. That last line, I'm going to be quite honest with you, is shocking to hear, because she literally uses the terms undermine by trying to rewrite or apologize for it. It was him and many, and it's an attitude many share. She is clearly acknowledging that there are theistic Satanists out there, members of the Church Satan, who are very theistic. She is clearly aware of something going on behind the scenes, where it seems to be a plan to undermine the philosophy of Anton LaVey by rewriting it somehow, by putting a new spin on it somehow. And honestly, that's exactly what happened. There is no more of this article that is really of any importance, other than to simply see, Blanche Barton's signature at the bottom. If you're curious about what it says, you can go ahead and freeze frame this now and you can read the rest of it. But in all honesty, there's really nothing there that we need to really worry about. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to state this very obvious for people out in the world. Blanche Barton, in this private letter, mind you, this is a private letter that was written to Tani Jantsang. Tani Jantsang put it on her website, and it was available on the Satanic Reds website for anybody to grab. I grabbed it along with a few other letters. And this letter makes Blanche's personal feelings in the months following Anton LaVey's passing very obvious. It makes it very clear to anybody who's paying attention that Blanche was aware of a plan, apparently, to undermine and rewrite the philosophy of Anton LaVey. That was the exact wording that she utilized, to apologize. Now, apologetics, I'm going to be doing another interview with Brett Keane in a few days, and we can hear from him directly what apologetics is. And but I'm going to give a basic definition really quickly. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and just pull it up. So apologetics is a religious discipline of defending the religious doctrines through systematic argumentation and discourse. You can actually look it up. So basically what it is, it's a system of teaching people on how to argue and promote a perspective, a spin, a narrative in a religion to validate it, even against controversy, even against people who may disagree with it or disavow it or be able to prove it false. So this is something that we actually do see in the Church Satan. This is something that we actually see very frequently in the Church Satan, that even I have encountered very recently, where Church Satan members have come forward trying to play the nice card and then give a explanation for certain things that we've discovered, such as the Joe Pine show and whatnot, where Anton LaVey literally looked at the camera and said, yes, I do believe in God. I believe God exists. It's so we see that she's aware that there's a plan to create apologetics. There's a plan to rewrite and undermine the philosophy. And this seems to be what she's saying and making it very obvious there and whatnot. And it's positioned in the middle of this letter, which is where we would find the main body, the main purpose of a letter. The rest of the letter is just general banter about Xerxes and other minor things. Yet this largest portion is focused on this direct opinion, meaning that this was the actual message that she was trying to get out without being noticed by people, general readers of this letter. It's very interesting that and I'm not sure what it means, but when we look at it individually, it seems relatively innocuous. It seems like a grieving woman who is venting her frustrations and anger about the actions of one of the members and about some pushback that she's been getting. However, what we're seeing in the long run, when we follow this up with the other events that transpired after this letter, the apparently push out of Carla LaVey out of the Church of Satan, removing the last of any opposition that seemed to remain within the Church of Satan for everything else that transpired later. We see Peggy Nadramia getting brought in within a handful of years as a co-high priestess with Blanche Barton. And when that happened, a new version of the Satanic Witch came out, which got rid of Zena LaVey's introduction and positioned Blanche Barton and Peggy Nadramia to create a introduction and an afterword, respectively, by both of them for this book, effectively creating a new copyright for them, so where they would own portions of this book. And then a few years later, and this is something that I'm going to make in a completely separate video. As a publisher, I did some investigating on this myself. We see a similar tactic used with the Satanic Bible, where Peter Gilmore wrote a new introduction for the Satanic Bible, effectively giving him a copyright over the Satanic Bible itself. So all of this is very interesting stuff, and it cements by the time of 2005 that Peter Gilmore is the new high priest of the Church of Satan. It's very interesting. And so we see within a handful of years the undermining of Anton LaVey's philosophy start getting put into effect. We see a lot of articles coming out by Peggy Nadramia, by Peter Gilmore, enforcing an atheist point of view, when before all of this, we never saw any of that in the entire Church of Satan. So I wanted to put this video out here to put this into perspective, to bring people's attention to what appears to be a long-running, long-game plot to change and undermine Anton LaVey's philosophy, which is definitely a very atheist tactic. We've seen this employed even in our modern day society and our economy, where over a course of years we are through media and social media, we see certain things that we may not have liked before become normalized. And so we see that here, the beginnings of normalization of an atheist philosophy come in and undermine the LaVey philosophy. And by that time, we also see Peter Gilmore come out with his satanic scriptures, which we will go over that in a future video altogether, where I will demonstrate certain things about it, and it's going to be very interesting. So thank you all for joining me tonight. It's a 35-minute video. I mean, when I have the ability to do this, and now that I do, it's interesting what I can produce. So thank you all for joining me. If you like this content, if you enjoyed this video, give me that thumbs up. Leave me a comment down in the comments down below. If you're a Church of Satan member, go piss up a rope, because I don't want to hear from you. And all I'm going to do is just delete your comment anyways. And yes, I'm going to delete your fucking comments if you're Church of Satan. I don't want to hear from Church of Satan individuals anymore. They've pissed me off way too much. With their constant attacks, their threats, and everything else. So yeah, here's the proof right here. Anton LaVey, according to Blanche Barton, right after he passed away, certainly believed in a real Satan. According to her, things would have changed over the years, and we will discuss that in a future video. But the truth is coming out there. The narrative is falling apart between the Joe Pine show being aired on Brett Keene's channel. I'll be also streaming that myself, putting a copy of that on my channel where people can actually see that. On top of everything else with the Jantsang files and the other documentations, we'll also be going into Aquino's documentations and just piling up the mountain of evidence that is going to show and undermine the undermining of Anton LaVey's philosophy, and show once and for all he was not an atheist. And then we will be discussing at some point where that all goes. You all have a good night. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you for being part of this video and going through it with me. I definitely appreciate you. I'm going to be putting a link down below, which is going to be a donation towards the STS. If you would be so kind and help us out and just put in a donation. It doesn't need to be anything much. It can be whatever you want to put in. That helps us out. We are not monetized here on this channel, and probably we will never be monetized. If we ever do, that's going to be a miracle, but I highly doubt we're ever going to be monetized. So thank you all. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. And until next time, my name's Lucifer Lake of Orden, and I'm out of here.